Welcome to the data acquisition. In this section, we are concerned with how to acquire data. One of the first tasks used in NLP processing is the acquisition of text, the acquisition of data that we can use for text processing purposes. While there are a number of different sources of text, in this section we will learn how to extract text from a web page. This is a very important source of data since the World Wide Web is so prevalent and so readily available. We'll also learn how to use Blinky to access Wikipedia type documents. Blinky is an API that provides access using Java. We'll look at how to access data from common file formats. Specifically, we'll be looking at how to access CVS type data and JSON data. And the last thing we'll be looking at in this section is how to text or acquire data from a PDF file. PDF files are also prevalent, however they require specialized APIs to get access to the text within. With this in mind, let's go ahead and start with the first task. Let's see how we can extract text from a web page. Extracting text from a web page. In this particular video, we'll be looking at how to use JSoup to access text, or how to extract it from a web page. We will start out by creating a NetBeans project, a Mavens project. We'll go through once we set up our Maven project, we'll show how to access the POM file that allows us to access the JSoup API. We'll be looking at a sample HTML document to run our code against, and we'll look at several elements and demonstrate several elements of JSoup in the process. We're going to be looking at how to access text from a web page because obviously web pages provide an important source of information. Most of these web pages, or almost all web pages, are formatted using HTML. The HTML consists of a series of tags where the text and images and other links are embedded inside of the actual HTML. However, we are often not interested in the actual tags. Instead, what we're interested in is the text or perhaps other elements such as the links. The sample HTML file we'll be using is shown here. As you'll see, it's a very simple HTML file. It has a head tag with a title tag where we have sample document as the title. In the body, we have a single paragraph with several links and an image. These will show how we can access this information from the actual web page. The JSoup classes we are actually interested in accessing is the JSoup class itself. This has a parse method. The parse method will allow us to create a document object based upon a specific HTML page. The document object in turn represents the HTML document. It has a number of methods that allows us to access different elements of the HTML document. These methods typically return back an element object, element instance. There's also an elements object class that we'll be working with that's essentially nothing more than an array of element objects. With this in mind, let's go ahead and look at actually how we create our NetBeans project. Maven uses a set of dependencies, and the advantage using Maven, it automatically goes out there and extracts these dependencies, which for our purposes will be a series of JSoup APIs. We can actually find the dependencies at a location. Basically, I'll go ahead and add this as a link into our file just for illustration purposes. However, what we find here is what we're going to use basically a set of dependencies from version 1.10.2. I'll go ahead and format this to make it a little more readable. What we see is a dependencies tag. Inside there we have one dependency that's needed. This is for org.jsoup. The artifact ID is JSoup, and the version we're using is 1.10.2. Next thing we need to do is actually create a file. We'll be starting out with basically a main method, which I'll paste in here for illustrative purposes. Inside the main block, what we need to start with is really a try block. I'll go ahead and add the try block here. Inside the try block, we'll find that we'll be opening a file, and that can cause some exceptions to be thrown. Let's look at the first set of code. First of all, we have a file object opening our sample.html file. We'll then go ahead and use our JSON parse method to actually extract the document. At this time, we really need a sample.html file. And just to see if it works at this point, we'll go ahead and run the actual code by clicking the run button. We're going to go ahead and choose this particular project class name for a main class. The code should run without any errors, which it does. It does not do much for us at the moment, but we in fact went out there, found the sample.html file, created the file object representing that particular file. Then we use the JSoup static parse method to parse the file and create the actual document. At this point, we can go out there and add additional code to do processing that might be of interest to us. This code will allow us to access the actual title of the document. I am going to go ahead and use the out.println. I need to use a static import, so I'll go ahead and add the static import for the system.out. You'll see that static import statement right here. If you're not familiar with it, it's a fairly nice little feature. Run our program again, and we'll see if the output will be basically the title sample document. So what we see here is the document object we actually created. We access the title method. A nice little feature. However, what we're really interested in looking at is the actual body of the HTML document. Put a little space here to make it look a little nicer. Do a right click to fix our imports again, and using the JSoup select package elements class will correct our syntax errors there. In this case, it will return the body of the actual text. Let's run it, see what it does. And we see right down here that there's our title again. We have the body, this simple print line statement to make it easier to see the body. We use the select method from our document object, using the body as the part of the document we want to access. It stores an element object. The element text method returns back the actual text. And so this is the body of the HTML file, interesting links, JSoup images. So you can see it's really pretty easy to access the body of an HTML document. You notice in this particular example, it does not include any line breaks between the different elements. That's just the nature of HTML and essentially how this particular API works for us. We can then use this for other NLP processing in the future videos. In addition to this capability, we have the ability to access different links that we might find. To access those, or show an example of how that works, fix my imports again. Again, that looks like the good element, one in the JSoup we're interested in using. In this case, we're going to select any anchors, any references, any links. We're in a code again, and we'll look at the output here, and we'll find that in the links section of our output, we'll see there's two links, one for the Wikipedia article on Java, another one for the Wikipedia article for JSoup. And again, we're using a document object, using a select method, using the anchor. In this case, instead of multiple, so we're using an elements object, essentially an array list. This links object may have multiple references, so we use a for each statement to look at each link, and that link will use the text method to pull out the text for that particular link, and this is what we get for output. Again, this is a really nice feature if you want to pull that information out. The next technique I want to show basically is going to allow us to access any links to images. In this case, looks again very, very similar. Looking for images, basically PNG file, and again returns back an elements object called images. We go through each images and print out the image using the default toString method. Ran the code for this example. We'll see that there's only one link for this. This is the PNG file for the Java topography file. This basically gives us the access to that information that we may need or may want to access in that HTML file. So what we've seen here is the ability to go out there and access JSoup using a Maven project in this case. We went out there and looked at how to open an HTML file, and this is the new file. If you want to access from the web page, it's very, very similar. Use a different HTML link here instead of a file name. We create a document to represent the HTML file that we're dealing with. We're using the parse method of JSoup class. To access the title, we use the document's title method. To access the body, we use the document select method. We use that actually 3 places in our example. To select the body, to select the anchors, to select the actual images. In the body, we use the element object to access the text. We do the same thing for the links and image. So notice each of these is using an elements object. We're using with the exception, well actually we're using that for the text. With the HTML links and images, we use a for each statement to access it. So this is a simple demonstration of the capabilities of JSoup.